All right, I'd like to thank y'all for coming out for this lecture called The Miseducation of the Black Woman. I came up with this lecture, or concept of this lecture, maybe about 3 or 4 months ago, when I started seeing all of the problems really that happens between black men and black women. Because the education that I'm talking about is not saying that everything that a black woman does is wrong, but more so what she's being taught on how to treat a man, her children, her way of life. That's what's miseducating her. And some of it is unknown to her, and it's almost like how the brothers are seduced into doing what they do. Like, we all know what black men do as far as drug dealing, murdering, killing, and that's something that they was taught as well, being miseducated. So I wanted to do this lecture so that women can actually hear men speaking about something other than you ain't nothing, like you're garbage or anything like that, and really get into the root cause of what actually has caused her to be this way, what has broken the divide. Now, for us at Israelite School I.S.U.P.K, we're always going to point to the Bible. We're always going to point to God. We call him Yahweh. Some people may say God or Lord, but either way, if we're not serving him, that's why we're in this confusing state. That's how we got in the condition that we're in, because we forgot to follow the laws that he set forth. Like the education that I'm going to show today is thousands of years old. It's just been lost because we follow this new wave education. This new wave, I don't need a man. This new wave, I don't need a woman. I ain't got to be a father. I ain't got to be a mother. We chose to follow this new wave, and we're the only ones suffering. We're the only community, when you think about it, that even have to have this type of lecture. We're the only community. The white community doesn't have to, the Asian community, the Arab community. We're the only community, and we're also the only people that were given that instruction from God. That's why they don't suffer the way that we're suffering. So we're going to go through a couple. Can you show me the slide? I'm going to stand up too, but I thought that y'all would feel more comfortable. I'm having a conversation with my family, so I figured I'd have a relaxing environment. My mama came out here. She ain't want me to say nothing, but my mama came out here. I said I can't talk about it too much, but she's an inspiration to why I did this lecture as well, because she taught me how to forgive my father. She taught me a lot. You know what I mean? If she didn't have to, she could have been like everybody else that has been miseducated. So I'm dedicated to her as well. So now here, this is Genesis, and remember, I said I was going to give like a timeline of history. So some of this stuff I have to teach. Now everybody's not on the level that some are biblically. So this is Genesis, the 3rd chapter. And the reason why I'm showing y'all this is because this tactic, one subject matter of the lecture is the black woman God. Right? That's one of the things that I wanted to tackle. And I wanted to educate people to show that that concept of making a woman God is not a new concept. Now, some people may say it's an African culture to call black women gods. But if you're going to accept the African culture of calling black women gods, then you would have to accept the culture where they would sew a baby's clitoris up. That's what they do to young black girls. You would have to also consort with the way that they treat their women and so forth like that. So in Genesis 3:1, it says, now the serpent was more subtle than any beast of the field which the Most High God had made. Now a lot of Christians teach that this was a literal snake, but this was not a snake. If you know anything about black people, which is what the Bible was written by black people, you know that we put names on people. So if you run fast, we call you speed. We might call you big or tall or short. We give you an attribute. We call people that tell on you, what do we call them? We call them rats, or we call them pigs. Not that they're an actual rat or a pig, but it's just the characteristic that carries. So when it says he was more subtle than any beast of the field, meaning this man, which is what there was, he was more slick. He was more diverse. What did the Native Indians call the white man in America? It said he was pale-faced, speak with a forked tongue. Meaning he say one thing, but then he would do another. So that's what it's talking about when it talks about the serpent. So he says to the woman. Now, why does the white man today go to the woman first instead of the man? In Luke 3:38, I don't know if you put it in here or not. In Luke 3:38, no, not 3:38. Luke the 3rd chapter says, no man enter into a strong man's house unless he first bind up the strong man. So what has happened in America, what has happened since the garden, is that they strategically will go to the woman to seduce her first, or they'll strategically destroy the man to totally remove him out the house to make the woman more susceptible to whatever destruction he's going to bring to the people. So now, he says, unto the woman, hath God said, you shall eat of every tree of the garden? And the woman said to the serpent, we may eat of the trees of the garden, but the fruit of the tree which is in the midst of the garden, God said, you shall not eat of it, neither shall you touch it, lest ye die. When it's talking about the trees and the fruits in here, if we're reading a book, right? If you're reading a book today, what do you call that book when you're taking in the information? You call it food for thought, right? Or I have to digest this, right? Because you're learning something. So when it talks about the fruit and the trees, it's talking about something that you're actually digesting and learning. So when she's saying we can eat of every fruit except the one in the midst of the garden, we can learn of these different things, but we can't learn this. We can't learn this information. It's all of that's talking about. So now, verse 3, it says, verse 4, and the serpent said unto the woman, ye shall not surely die. Now, the reason why the serpent said that is because, like, if you're a parent and you have children, you can say, if you do this, this punishment gonna happen to you. Like, I know for me, my mama would say, if you sell drugs, you're gonna go to jail. Now, if I sold that drug and I didn't go to jail, what does that make my mother? To make her a liar. Now, if I get locked up 5 years or 2 years or 6 months later, now she's telling the truth, which is the point of what she's saying. So when the Most High is saying, you shall surely die, he wasn't saying in that instance that you die, but he's saying that death is coming around the corner because you're disobeying what I said. Right. It's the same exact thing, all right? So now, when the serpent said to her, ye shall not surely die, so that woman, it became attractive, the knowledge that she wanted to learn. Because what happens outside the laws of God? The scriptures say, wide is the gate to destruction, narrow is the right way. So when you go outside the laws of the God, there ain't no rules of what you can eat. There ain't no rules of who you can sleep with, who you can be with. There ain't no rules of what you can celebrate. You can do whatever it is that you want to do. And it becomes enticing when you see everybody having fun. Like that fun, we got to be careful when we accept what is called fun, because we die at the expense of fun. We die when we get high. We die having sex with anybody else that we want to sleep with the same sex and stuff like that. So we have to be careful of that. So she says unto the woman, you shall not surely die, for God will know that in the day that you eat thereof, then your eyes shall be opened, and ye shall be as gods, knowing good and evil. So what did the serpent tell that woman? That she would be a god. And that became enticing to her. So now why is that relevant today? Because all they push to black women is what? That you are a god. And what I find interesting about today's concept of the black woman as God, the minute they say a black woman is God, she's naked. Y'all notice that? Does anybody, maybe I don't see the conscious community like y'all, but every time I hear them say the black woman is a God, her clothes got to immediately come off. That's right. And that's a learned behavior, which we're going to show. Can you give me the next slide, Pastor? Now, them trees and gardens, in Isaiah 30:1, it says, woe to the rebellious children that saith to the Lord, take counsel, but not of me. The reason why we're in this condition is because the Lord gave us counsel since before the garden, since Adam. And we've been breaking those laws since Adam. And that's why it says they take counsel, but not of me. And they take a covering, but not of my spirit, that they may add sin to sin. Why do you think we're number one in abortion? Why do you think we're number one in the divorce rates, single parent homes, drug use, alcohol use, AIDS counsel? Because we took a counseling, but not of the Lord's spirit. If you take abortion, which I'll speak about later, in 1973, before the white man legalized it, you couldn't get black women to abort their babies, not in an alarming rate. You can find stories from back in the 1900s and stuff when the white doctors would have to tell black women or try to convince black women to not have the baby. Even if a young black child got pregnant, they would send it down south somewhere, but they would not kill the baby. They would keep the baby alive. But today, you abort your baby. And that's why that's the number one killer of black people. Right. Because we took counsel, but not of the Most High. The Most High said the fruit of the womb is a gift from the Lord. You get that baby in your womb, the Lord wanted you to have that child. That's one thing. What is another thing? One of the major components is the black household, which is also why I did this lecture. The black household united is the strongest thing on the face of the planet. And as we dig into this lecture, I'm going to give you the statistics to show you just how strong the black household was before civil rights, before the 60s, before the 70s. And then we're going to see what was the cause of that problem. 1 Corinthians 11:3 is very important. It gives a set structure for that household. It says, but I would have you know that the head of every man is Christ. Christ is the king of all Israel, over all of them. The Most High is above all. And it says, and the head of the woman is the man. In America, that's a problem. Only for us, though. Only for us is that a problem, because when the black man is in his right state, there is nothing that he won't do for that black house. That's right. There ain't no life he won't give. There ain't no sacrifice he won't make. And for that woman that's with that man, there ain't nothing she won't do for that same household, because she sees that man performing his service and his duty, and so she does the same thing. There ain't nothing more powerful than a family united. Nobody can tell me that. That's why when you go back in the days, you see them parents that had 8 or 9 children. Them 8 or 9 children were together, grew up together. They have morals. Now, if it's 8 or 9 children, if you're lucky, if it's 3 kids, they got 3 different dads. Period. Because we don't have that same structure that we had before. And then the head of Christ is the Most High. That's a order. Now imagine if we just followed that order. We wouldn't be miseducated like we was since the garden. We would now become re-educated. That's the problem amongst our people. I can't speak for everybody, but I know for our people, that's the problem. Give me the next slide. Deuteronomy 28:56. In Deuteronomy the 28th chapter, when you read the first verse, verses 1 through 15, it'll talk about the blessings that will come to the children of Israel. It says if we would keep the commandments, we would be above all nations. We would be on top. That's why we're strategically dominated. Even if you take, we were so-called free from slavery in the late 1800s. By the early 1900s, the white man was in what he called the Great Depression. Meanwhile, we was in our Renaissance, our own Renaissance, meaning we was establishing cities, law firms, doctors, hospitals, everything. Black Wall Street is not the only city that was wealthy. You have cities in Chicago, Atlanta, Washington, D.C., and the white man would see that, and he would say, they 40 years removed from slavery, 40 years. 40 years removed from slavery, and they're able to do this. Imagine what 50 years would be, 60 years, 100 years. Right. The white man would be back in the cave somewhere dying, and we would be ruling. So he strategically made sure he did things, whether it was the Rockefeller, the CIA, which we'll get into. But here it says, the tender and delicate woman among you, which would not adventure to set the sole of her foot upon the ground, for delicateness and tenderness. Now that shows you, number one, because they like to say that the Bible is a misogynistic book. I mean, it's not. The Bible says that they had this king asked a question to 3 wise men. And he wanted to know what was the strongest thing on the face of the planet. The strongest thing on the face of the planet is the truth. The second strongest thing is the woman. That's biblical. So if the Bible is a misogynistic book, why would it give a woman that much reverence? It's a misnomer. It's easy. The reason why they say it's misogynistic because the Bible says if you're going to learn, you're going to learn from a man. It says Ezekiel 34 and 31, it says the flock of my pasture are men. Now, does that mean that a woman can't teach a man anything? No. Does that mean that a woman can't bring a man to God? No. We're talking about in this type of environment. In this type of environment where we know who we are, who's the teacher, the man is the teacher. Now, that don't mean that there ain't a role. We'll show the role of the woman. But when we're talking about that job that the Lord gave, that's for man. Now, it says the tender and delicate woman. In order for it to say the tender and delicate woman, that means men would have to be treating that woman tender and delicate, that she wouldn't touch the sole of her feet. But because we chose to break the commandments, it says her eyes shall be evil toward the husband of her bosom, and toward her son, and toward her daughter. Does that not fit black women today? Right. Now, this ain't about, sometimes I know a lot of people, when they hear us talking, they can't understand if we're talking badly. Hold on a second. Can you take that? They don't know if we're speaking about, because they usually hear us speaking and we're loud, because they say, oh, y'all always loud, and y'all talking, and you're boisterous and stuff like that. But if you actually took the time in what we're saying, this is a warning from the Lord. Deuteronomy, the 28th chapter, is a warning, just like any parent would give their child the pitfalls of what will befall you. If you get good grades, if you keep your house clean, I get this. But if you break them, this is what's going to happen. But this has happened to black women. Black women have become evil to their husbands, evil to their sons, and evil to their daughters. When you kick your man out the house, you're being evil to the whole entire household. Right. When you abort your babies, that's murder. You cannot justify killing your child, and you can't say that there ain't no life in there, because in order for the sperm to travel, the sperm has to be allowed to even travel to the womb. And then when it cracks the egg, it's growing. And how do you know that it's murder? Kill a pregnant woman. I'm not telling anybody to go do it, of course. But if you actually were to kill or murder a pregnant woman, they charge you with 2 murders. Right. When Ray Carew killed that woman, they charged her with murder of her. And I don't think the child passed, but if he would have died, they would have charged him with that body too, because they know that the life is in the womb. You understand? So this is a warning for what was going to happen to black women. Give me the next slide. Now, this is something I want you to pay attention to, because we're going to be talking about slaves and stuff like this. This is an article that I found. You can play it. It's going to be self-explanatory. Can you play it? There you go. It's playing.
We already know that this is a gene that contributes to risk for depression and post-traumatic stress disorder. When we looked at their own children also had an epigenetic change in the same spot on the stress-related gene. We're talking about multiple traumas for hundreds of years. Not only are you traumatized directly, you've seen your friends, your cousins, and everyone in your environment being beaten, sold away from family, raped, mutilated. All those things that were happening, and eventually, of course, lynched. But looking at those traumas, is it plausible that those people escaped stress-related illness? Not plausible.
The next slide. Now, what they were saying, and this is Dr. Rachel Yehuda, professor of psychiatry at Ian School of Medicine at Mount Sinai. Now, the only reason they came up with this is because they was talking about the Holocaust. I really don't care about white people dying. Right. But that's the only reason they even cared to bother looking this up. So now it says they conducted a depth of research into the epigenetics and integration of transmission of trauma. Now, nobody's been more traumatized than black people. Right. When I'm saying black, I'm talking about my Hispanic brothers as well, because they went to slavery over here first. Right. So now it says, in layman's terms, she is researching how serious instances of trauma, i.e. slavery, and post-traumatic stress disorder can be passed down through generations in shared family genes. Meaning the psychological trauma, like she said, of seeing your brother get killed, having a wife and seeing her raped, having a wife not only seeing her rape, but that she produces your child, that child being taken away from you. Now imagine that happening for hundreds of years. And not only you seeing it, but now your son is seeing it. Now your son's son is seeing it. Your daughters are seeing it. They're saying that passes down into your DNA, which is why slavery is something that we always have to deal with it, and we should not tolerate anybody trying to brush that under the rug. 9/11, only 3,000 people died in 9/11. They never let that go. And we should never let slavery go. Every time they talk about the Holocaust, anybody talk negative about the Holocaust, that Jewish man will hunt you down for that. But because we disrespect our ancestors, everybody is allowed to disrespect. Say again? Oh, okay. Because we disrespect our ancestors, everybody else is now allowed to disrespect our ancestors. And we have to learn to have a little bit more honor, a little bit more integrity for what's happened to our ancestors. So it says her research has revealed that when people experience trauma, it changes their genes in a very specific and noticeable way. So when those people have children, their genes are passed down to their children also inherited. The abject horrors and brutality suffered by slaves are more likely to have the same effect on the black slavery descendants today. And it ain't just the physical trauma, it's also our nakedness. What I mean by nakedness, I'm talking about the desire for men to make our women get naked. That's the most disgusting thing you could ever do. Your woman's nakedness should be your woman's nakedness, should not be mine. I should not see a woman's nakedness on any level. Just like a woman shouldn't see my nakedness if she's not my woman. But we were taught that in slavery. We're going to show it. Give me the next slide. Enslaved women were forced to have sex with their owners, but their masters considered this a favor. White men claimed that they were doing black women a favor. The white man is so diabolical. That's not my subject, though. I could spend all day talking about that. That's not my subject. They said they doing black women a favor by raping them. I don't understand how you doing anybody a favor by raping them. It's the most horrific thing you could ever do. It says, by saving them from having sex with black men. Now you see the agenda starting to build up. White men were saying they were doing them a favor by saving them from having sex with black men who were considered to be animalistic and brutal. To show you how pale-faced and fork-tongued he is, he's raping the woman, but he's saying that the brother is being animalistic and cruel. When rape is what's animalistic and cruel. Right. But the psychology that he's giving the black woman is what's seducing her. So it says enslaved women were not just considered tools to get work done, they were also considered cattle capable of producing more tools for work. The black man's struggle was hard. The black woman's struggle was just as hard, if not a little bit harder, and I'll tell you why. Imagine getting raped all day, getting pregnant, having that child, and then still having to do the same work that the man has to do at the same time. Imagine having to go pick cotton and then come home and get raped. And then as you pregnant, the white man that raped you and got you pregnant don't care. He still wants you to go out there and pick cotton and do whatever slave duties you had to do. That's why it says enslaved women were not just considered tools to get work done. They were considered as cattle. Like, we have to understand, like, the black man and black woman, if anything, they should forgive each other as a nation. Like, whatever the black woman did to the black man should let it go. And the same thing for the black woman to the black man. That's the only way we can begin to heal each other. And then the sad part about it, everybody gonna say they love God, but nobody's seen God. The scriptures say, how can you love the Most High who you've not seen, but not love your brother or sister who you see every day? And that's the problem that we face in this community. We'll fight each other all day, not realizing the enemy that put that tool in the middle for us to fight each other. Them tools that's in there, that system that we got to get rid of, is what we brought out earlier in Isaiah 30. Instead of covering ourselves with the Lord's Spirit, we covered ourselves with another nation's spirit that was never meant for us. And how could your enemy ever be your friend? The white man come over here and rape and rob you and kill you for 400 years, and you think that just changed? He beat you for 400 years. How can that change in that short amount of time? So it says cruel masters will purposely get enslaved women pregnant so they can have more workers. Like, that's their child that they put into that black woman, but they don't even see that as their child. They see that as cattle, more produce. So now the woman gives birth to that baby, and she knows this baby that's inside her, she'll never enjoy it. That's the oppression that black women have suffered. That's why I said it's not their fault. If anybody watched my interviews, I've said it's damn near not the black woman's fault psychologically. It's in her DNA. So now we have to give her some information that removes that DNA from her. But if we're going to constantly charge and berate her all the time, she'll always live that lie. She'll never say, well, let me listen to this brother. If all we're saying is you ain't shit, excuse my language, if that's all we're saying, she'll never take the time to listen to what we're saying. All right? It says if they ever resisted any intimate advance, they might be subjected to incredibly harsh punishments, such as beatings or rapes. Give me the next slide. A certain group of enslaved women were deemed Jezebels by their owners. Again, this is the white man's wording. These women were assumed to be even more promiscuous than the other enslaved black women. Like they said, these black women, they like when we rape them, but these ones really wanted to have sex with us. So they put a Jezebel term on the black woman. Black women were often subjected to sexual abuse multiple times throughout the day. White men forced these Jezebels to have sex with them and insisted that it's the enslaved women's fault. Now, if you notice, in the beginning, and then I got this from an article, in the beginning, they would say that they were saving them from being with the animalistic black man. Now, when they want to make them whores, they say it's their fault because they're promiscuous. Again, pale-faced people with a forked tongue. You'll see the theme, give the next slide. The theme for today will be the white man is the devil. That's right. That's the theme for the day. The white man is the goddamn devil, and all devil means is deceiver. Meaning he say one thing, but he means something else. Right. You ever want to know if he's right? When he say something, just believe the opposite. More than likely, you'll be fine. The sexual exploitation of enslaved women has led to the creation of Jezebel stereotypes in mainstream media. Y'all think it's an anomaly that only the black women are looked at as whores on every media you can think of? Hip-hop music, artwork, whatever it is, the black woman is the one that's naked. And that's learned too. It says the sexual exploitation of black women is not a thing of the past. They are often sexually exploited. Mainstream, many describe hip-hop stars like Nicki Minaj and Lil Kim. And one thing that I did not do, I do have some pictures on here, but I'm not going to get too graphic with any imagery, because I think the black woman has been used up enough, don't y'all? So I don't think I need to display that today. I think my wording should be enough. I think we've seen enough TV, right? Right. I appreciate it. It says, these over-sexualized perceptions of black women are embraced and perpetuated through mainstream media today. So now I put two scriptures up, and then I'm going to speak on it. It says, the whoredom of a woman may be known in her haughty looks and her eyelids. And Deuteronomy 23:17 says, there shall be no whore of the daughters of Israel. So now again, how do you educate it? Imagine if we all follow what the Lord said, that there should be no whore of the daughters of Israel. The daughter of our black women, we shouldn't raise them up to dress in provocative clothing, to dress with their ass, with their behind showing all day. I'm trying not to cuss out here, but they behind showing all day, with their butt out. And then brothers shouldn't lust after women like that, because when you lust after women, you're not disencouraging them, you're encouraging them. There's be plenty of times me and my brothers would be standing outside and a woman in some scantily clad clothing will walk past and we wouldn't even give her the attention that that demon on her is seeking. Because we're trying to battle that demon. Now imagine if we didn't give them that attention. Then they would stop dressing like that. The only reason they're dressing like whores is because we entertain whores. When men stop loving whores, black women will stop being whores. Give me the next slide. That's real talk. Now, after when you look at that, this is Sarah Bartman. Now, I didn't want to get her actual image. This is a play drawing. This is Sarah Bartman, one of the first black women that they put on a showpiece as a slave auction. And what are they showing her naked? Now, this is just the artwork of it, but they literally had her up there. And then when you look at it now, this is Nicki Minaj this month. And what do they have her? Naked as well. This white woman, because Amber Rose is not black. All y'all want to like Amber Rose, that's a devil. Right. And the devil created strippers have feelings too, to encourage black women to be strippers. This is what slavery taught us. And we accept it because it's in our DNA and we think we're not better than that. That's why calling a black woman a god and by making her get naked, you're doing nothing more than what your slave master taught you. Right. That ain't no new science that you thought up where you said, I'm going to come up with this black woman as God concept. The white man beat you to it a long time ago. Give me the next slide.